lunch. It is my real pleasure to welcome amongst us our colleague, Dr. Qiang, who will give the lunch speech. He came to the United States in 1986 and studied astrophysics at the University of Notre Dame, left in 1989 for China to join the movement and participated in Tiananmen Square. And since then, he became a full-time person for the human rights activity. He received, for his activities and for his vision, in 2002, the Genius Award of MacArthur. And since fall 2003, we have been lucky to attract him to Berkeley, and he is a fellow at the School of Journalism. He will, CITRIS has sponsored in a small way his activity, and so I'm not going to even try to describe what he does. He will do that much better, but I am very pleased to welcome him.
Thank you, Regina. My talk is going to be really low tech. This is all visual aid you have. Yeah, one of my early incarnation is astrophysics, and the next one was a human rights activist. And now I consider I'm a student of the internet here in Berkeley. My title is China's Digital Revolution, or Internet Revolution. I don't know how much I need to say, because probably most of you already have read and heard and visited and probably has business or research exchanges activities in China, with China. How can you ignore China? So let me just share a few numbers. They're not the most updated either, but you probably already have. China internet users today, according to the official survey, above 80 million. More than the total number of members of Chinese Communist Party. China's online connected computers, 30 million, increased 44% last year. Number of domestic websites, 500,000, but increased 35% since last year. If you look at the entire cyberspace, the Chinese language contents was about 10% after English, Japanese, and German. The total bandwidth of China connected to the international now is 20 gigabytes, but it's 200% increase last year, and it's expanding. But if we look at it on the dimension of application level, well, it's not that big. I just throw one number here. China has 8.3 million small and medium enterprises. About 47% of them online doing something, but only 11% of them have real e-transaction activities. Compare with the United States, 60% of small enterprises, 80% of medium ones, 90% of large enterprises are extensively using the internet for their business activities. I can go on and on talking about education, talking about e-governance, public health, and other sort of numbers, statistics that China is expanding today. But since I'm in the journalism school now, and I also running this project called China Internet Project, and I was also a human rights activist, also a political exile. I cannot go back to China. Let me just throw the other one particular dimension, which is freedom of expression and the free press issues in China. I'm basically an optimistic person in this regard. If in history we're looking back to say that technology transformed society, I think we can quote China in the 21st century. The authoritarian regime fundamentally based on the control the people's information environment and by violence. And that really starting to change since internet came to China. You may ask why Chinese government do that anyway. Well, why Chinese government do the start of the economic reform and opening the door? It's for its own survival, but it's also for this is more like historical perspective, this whole nation building process the Chinese people have gotten into since the beginning of last century. Is part of that process. The direct aim for the Chinese government to develop internet, obviously, is for the economic development, to increasing the competitiveness of its environment, and for the better and more efficient control over the society. And it's implement quite impressive control mechanisms on the China's internet. There's law, political forces, there's technology, most sophisticated, expensive filtering and blocking and surveillance, and this through the fear and intimidation promoted self-censorship throughout the society. And by that, it still sort of adopt this new age of the internet. But that being said, let me just throw 3 quick examples to see this interplay of the Chinese people, internet users, using the technology and express themselves and get access to information, and the control mechanism in China today. And this process will go on for a long time. I think in the long run, Chinese government is definitely losing the battle. But in the short run, it's a very exciting, interesting, but sometimes it's not a linear, simply things getting a better scenario. Let's say, let me throw 3 stories. One is BBS, bulletin boards. That came to China about 5-6 years. Starting from those campus servers, and then expanded all over the place. And today, there are at least, I think the top 10 those internet forums have at least 500,000 of people registered on it. There's enormous of information and opinions and being exposed on those forums. Many of them directly from the official media, but much more to add into and contribution, criticism, shared information. It's certainly leading the current China's media reform. The media has to follow those online opinions regarding to corruption, regarding to education policies, or many other social and political, environmental, economic issues. Yes, those forums are being monitored, and the police are constantly sort of arresting individuals who they believe is cross the line and as to intimidate others. But however, there's a vast gray area of information who sort of politically legitimized, but it's before they were always being controlled by the official media mechanism, but now it's really sort of people setting the agenda. The second one is last year SARS, when the government in the beginning, especially the local authorities, almost by those kind of nature, to suppress the bad news and trying to control the information flow. Nobody really predict, and even they pretty good control the internet chat rooms to make sure nobody spreading those kind of information on the internet, but nobody expected there was cell phone, was text messages breakthrough this information because of the official suppressive information. So there was really a panic, and a rumor goes around. And in Guangzhou City, I remember this one day, this one message, short message, saying there's a fatal flu in our city. Be prepared. By the way, China has is the largest cell phone market, 257 million, probably more, the mobile phone users. About 30% of them are constantly using the internet short messaging services, especially last year in Guangdong, that's a southern province. So that one short message in one day being sent around about 45 million times, everybody gets it. So the whole city was in a panic. The official has to come out to respond what's going on. And even that's a very controlled information, but at least they cannot be silent anymore. The third example is weblogs. When weblogs just starting in China last year, many people, observants say, well, this is not going to be the same weblog like the United States, which is those big opinion bloggers will express themselves. It's a very American thing, but it's also in this freedom, free expression society. You can criticize the media, you can criticize the president, you can you can do all these things, mobilize together. But Chinese weblog seems they're just writing their daily activities or their personal interest, and they cannot cross the line because you're asking for trouble if you have this trace of the personal information identity. The first few months is true, and those two political provocative ones are being put in prison, so nobody crossing that line. And then what happened? One 25 years old Guangzhou magazine editor, woman, starting to write her sex life online. And she had a very active sex life. And she wrote very well as well. So next thing you know is she attracted a huge number of traffic. And then next thing you know is her weblog being linked to the largest Chinese portal to promote, to attract their eyeballs. And that's 20 million hits right there. And this person, editor, 25 years old, Mu Zimei, is an instant celebrity in China, like Janet Jackson here. The official media also engage in the discussion about whether that's allowed, whether it's ethical, whether that's right thing to do to a band. But I'm not talking about sex attracts people online. I'm talking about because of her, the word blogging, the word weblogs into the Chinese language. Because of her, before her, there was 5,000 registered in China's this one small weblog host service. After that, there was 100,000 webloggers instantly, 5 blogging services going on, and now it's 150,000 bloggers and growing. And how can you stop that trend? I'm going to cut myself short just to say the Chinese people, just like everywhere else, when you have a technology, people need to communicate, people need to express themselves, and people need to have access to information. And they will use the technology in the most creative way to achieve that. And even for the company's commercial interest to facilitate that and to attract that. So I think the government information control mechanism is really running against not only the people's nature, but it's also the internet industry's profits and commercial interest. I don't think the government on the control part will simply give away. But I do see in the coming years, there are going to be so many interesting development that unpredictable, but also very how to say, dynamic, intense that in this front. The Chinese media is already become much more active, engaging the reporting because the information already online, so they have an excuse to report that. My own project in the journalism school, China Internet Project, was trying to build up this kind of a weblog and a website to monitoring and reporting this whole process. Because no matter how China develops, the more transparent this society is, this complex society is, to its own people and to the world, the better. And I think technology can help us to do that. And also the project, we're trying to create a bridge between the China, the internet development, and the world. So I'm looking forward to have more exchanges with you. Thank you.
I'd be very surprised if there weren't several questions from the audience. So please, if you have questions, I have a microphone here that we can use to capture them for the others listening in.
Has there been any wide-scale deployment of peer-to-peer services in China, such as Freenet, Mojo Nation, Kazaa, Nutella, anything like that?
There are those initiatives from overseas Chinese communities, proxy servers and P2P attempts. But in my view, it's much more important, or not important, it's much more active if you watch the people inside of China, how do they communicate. I'll give you one more example. Social network software. It's started booming here, but it's immediately going into China. I guess people connect each other, business and networks and dating and all of that. But also, look at the Tribe or Friendster, or each social network software has those chat rooms and those gathering functions. That's another place for Chinese internet police to go track, and pretty soon they'll be out of people again.
On the same note, what you mentioned about policing, I've heard from people in China that the government is also stepping up their technology and using spiders and other kinds of automatic tracking things to automate the, I guess, control of what's being said. Can you comment on that?
Yes. As I mentioned, I don't have time here to elaborate, but Chinese government certainly invested enormous of resources. And I think deployed probably the most advanced technologies and cutting-edge technologies you can find. By the way, those technologies probably supplied, not probably, I know they are supplied by the U.S. companies here. But but technology won't do that. For example, firewall. You block IP sites, and then they get more sophisticated. They can block individual pages. They can block Yahoo caches. But nobody predict weblogs when there's 150 webloggers in China and growing number of Chinese webloggers here. Those links and free exchange information will much more dynamic and spontaneous. It's hard for a IP blocking or much more sophisticated blocking mechanism to track. Yeah. The human intelligence is always better.
What kind of consequence will China government is willing to bear when they think there's a necessary situation they want to unplug the internet?
There's a necessary situation
to unplug the internet.
I don't think.
What kind of consequence or cost are they willing to pay for that?
Well, then you unplug the Chinese economy altogether. I don't think you can do that.
I should say public internet, not the private or commercial.
I'm not sure you can really differentiate that today in China. I think they are so immersed together. Yeah. I'm not sure I completely answer your question, but yeah. I just say, from my conversation with the Chinese sort of close to the policymakers level, they have considered many possibilities how to adapt the new situation. But the one idea never occurred to them is to unplug the internet.
Let me ask a question another way.
Since China government has publicly announced that they are willing to not carry on the Olympic, but if they want to crash the Taiwan government, so what kind of cost do you think China government would like to bear? If a situation gets worse, they cannot control, they just unplug the internet totally.
I still don't think so. I know it's any regime, those kind of authoritarian regimes' nature, they'll do things at any cost to preserve their power status. Maybe attacking Taiwan is one option, I'm afraid. It's an awful thing, but there is a possibility. We hope, actually, by more transparent Chinese society is, the more people who has access to the information and access to express themselves will actually prevent such kind of disaster policy being implemented in China, including unplug the internet. Because I believe what's internet bringing China right now is this newly emerging virtual public sphere. For first time, there are so many Chinese people actually can have this virtual public space to sort of engage a dialogue and debate and express where China should go and what Chinese society should go and what's the problem and what we want. Really coming from, not the entire population, but those urban, educated, quite sophisticated sort of middle class. And that is something didn't happen before, and I hope that really have a positive impact on Chinese politics.
Just a quick question on a more positive note, say, since the SARS epidemic and the realization that information flow is really positive, are there branches of the government or the healthcare system that are now proactively using the internet to get information and to get public databases of the way in which the epidemic first spread, and especially what can be done in the future to harness an outbreak like that? A more positive look at things.
I think they are. I personally don't know any individual projects on that. But in general, I know there's many active, positive research projects and application initiatives in China, different level of the government for their better managing the society. And also, I know the Chinese government basically learned a lesson which is not entirely let the press free. They don't do that right now. But they realize they cannot just suppress information like that like before. They have to coordinate their act together much better.
In your seminar that you proposed, you suggested that you will be collecting data on how the Chinese people go around the political suppression or the political censorship. Could you share with us so far what have you found? What does the data say?
Well, there's a number of initiatives, as I said. Even before I came to Berkeley, when I was in human rights in China, one of the key questions is how to use new technology to facilitate the information flow and freedom of expression in China. We sort of identified quite a few projects from, I hate to use the word, spamming, to which indiscriminately just sending emails in, to the more sophisticated proxy server type of approaches. There's a number of them. There's one called Ultra-Reach, which is by some technology group people right here in San Francisco area. There's another one called DynaWeb, which is basically constantly changing their IP addresses. And there are several other initiatives, sort of more P2P, free net type considered. But however, I think the other aspect of this, our project, the significance is the how do you actually, it's not Chinese people don't have enough information, it's more like how do you possibly filtering, just like here, those vast information and organize them to a higher level. The official media is not going to do it because they're still top-down controlled. The commercial companies are not going to do it. And there's no real sort of nonprofit initiatives in China, educational initiatives in China. But this is a question here. I'll give you an example everybody knows, Slashdot, right? It's sort of a good example of using the technical solutions to draw the balance between the participation and the quality. And somehow they filtering the information out, create an online community, and created one kind of media, like on one of the class on its own. And that kind of approach to dealing with online information, online community, if you apply, not their software, but the general sort of idea to extract the collective intelligence from the internet and filtering to give them professional level standards on the China situation is what I'm interested in, and it's this project trying to explore.
Any other questions?
So we solved the China problem.
Yes, we did. Thank you very much.